If you've ever thought to yourself in the middle of a writing session that you've got writer's block, well, chances are that might not be the case because your talent isn't blocked. Sometimes it's just exhausted. This isn't actually a talent issue. It's an energy issue. That's why on this episode of the Creative Cynergy Show, we're diving into the unhealthy habits that are silently sabotaging your creativity. In the opening of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a line that says, sleep, those little slices of death, how I loathe them. Well, I've come to learn recently that sleep is essential to creative output because sleep deprivation could be stealing your ideas. I mentioned this in my last episode, but when you lack sleep or really deep REM sleep and you're running on fumes, it starts to impact the clarity of your imagination. So when you sit down and you start trying to create, especially as writers, that brain fog is completely enveloping your creative output. When you're tired, your brain can't make the connections that it usually does to the resources in your mind that are essential for pulling plot or fleshing out characters. It's sort of just in a muck, going along writing gobbledygook. So for example, if you've ever been in a really good flow state where your energy is up and you're spitting words on the page like fire, that's when you've been fully rested, you're recharged, your batteries are running on high, the muse is over your shoulder telling you, good job, or whatever your muse tells you. As opposed to when you're trying to force it and you just want to cram in a writing session, but you've been running on empty all day, and you're just trying to check boxes, that's going to spit out something on the page that more often than not, when you look back on it the next morning, or even while you're writing it, you're not going to be happy with it. At least I wouldn't be and haven't been. I have been so distracted trying to revisit a novel idea that I've been working on that sometimes I have to put it aside again because I don't want sleep-deprived me interjecting seeds into the story that don't make sense. What you want to do when sleep or lack thereof is starting to affect your creativity is set a realistic wind-down routine so that you are getting to bed at the same time every night, or at least as close to it as possible. Start 30 minutes to an hour to several hours if you need it. Set a timer and know that you have to start winding things down. When I was a kid, I used to play with my brothers. And I remember my mom or dad would poke their head in and be like, it's time to start winding things down, because I had to go to sleep and get up for school. They would say, school comes early in the morning. But they would always say, time to start winding it down. Well, you are going to be your own parent in this situation, and you're going to start telling yourself that it's time to wind things down. Because if not, then you start to try to burn the midnight oil. As cool as that sounds, it's no longer conducive to good creative output. So create a cutoff time for yourself at night where you start to shut off the screens, shut off your phone, tune the world out, and start putting in different routines, like maybe some meditation, a hot bath, hot cup of tea. Hey, you're a writer. Read. Turn that TV off and stick your nose in a book, and it'll start to calm your brain down. Doesn't matter what you read, your choice. If you start putting these elements in place as, rituals to wind down before bed, it'll really start to help you develop better sleep hygiene, which will, in fact, give you better, deeper rest. So I mentioned burnout at the top of this episode and how sometimes it's not about creative burnout as much as it is you're burned out on your energy stores. Well, burnout is, in fact, real. And the thing is, it's not actually killing your drive. It's killing your output. It's not killing the creativity or your want to do it. You still want to create. You just can't, or you can't do it in a way that you would normally do it. You would normally produce, hey, give yourself a pat on the back. You would normally produce these great stories, that people want to read. But when you're burnt out, is that the stuff that you're producing? No. Let's be realistic there too. If you start to try to write and you're exhausted, like I said before, you're not putting out the best story as you first saw it in your head. Because creativity thrives when you give it the surplus energy that it needs, not when you're in survival mode and you're just trying to force it. And if you want to hear more about the signs of burnout and what you might be missing, check out my last episode. I do a real deep dive into that. It's actually a short episode, but it's really meaty. But a lot of the times writers, like I said, not only are you trying to produce your work, but you're dealing with life's challenges too. So yeah, we're burning the candle at both ends. And eventually what happens then, it meets in the middle, poof, no more candle. We don't want that to happen. What you want to do, again, make sure you're getting proper sleep and rest. But also while you are writing, start to schedule mini micro breaks. You don't have to, pedal to the metal the entire time. Give yourself room and permission to take a break if you need it. I know that we get into these states and we want to just finish, but sometimes we need to step away. And I can sum this up the best way that possible by when I'm doing any kind of graphic design, especially as it relates to myself. I'll be so into it that I can't tell if I've like what I've produced or not until I literally take a step back. And then I can view it, or even, I'll step out of the room for a minute and I'll come back and I'll look at it. And then I see it almost with fresh eyes. But, if you try to figure out if it's working or not while you're in it, you're kind of too deep in it already to make that assessment. So take a step back, come back with fresh eyes. One of the other unhealthy habits that a lot of creative professionals make that is impacting your productivity is poor nutrition. Be realistic with yourself, especially when you sit down to do work for extended periods of time. Do you even get up and have lunch? And this could be in an office space, your home office, whatever you're working on, essentially most of the time consumes your entire day. And then you are going to the drive-through to get your dinner, which is another big mistake because there's really no nutritional value. I don't care what drive-through you're going through. But we get so wrapped up in our daily activities that we don't get the nutrition that we need that's actually going to fuel our furnace to help us to be productive. So it's counterintuitive, right? So you sit down, you have a coffee in the morning, you have a soda later in the day, you're constantly consuming caffeine thinking this is what I need to keep my energy up, when in fact you need to eat and you need to drink water. Water is so underrated. And I'll never understand when people tell me, I don't like the taste of water. What taste? And if there's a taste, fine. They have things called liquid IV or, stuff like that you can put into the water that will help you with the electrolytes that you need as well. Just make sure you watch the sugar intake. And again, I lay all of this information out cleanly in my guide, Staying Fit As You Said. And it's a great resource for you to have even just at your desk. It's a small little book where you can get the digital download and it'll walk you through these steps to help you to build better nutritional habits throughout the day. So let's talk about stress and how that impacts our creativity. And this might not even be a silent sabotage. We all know when we're stressed out. It gets up into the muscles of your neck. It affects your mood. Well, guess what? When it affects your mood, it's going to also affect your creativity. Because say you're writing a fiction novel and you're writing your character who's supposed to be happy-go-lucky, but you're stressed out and tense, well, all of a sudden, that's going to bleed into the character. Because, like it or not, when we're creating our characters, facets of ourselves fall into these characters as we're creating them. So the mood that you are in, be it stressed out, is going to affect whatever piece of content that you're working on. Creativity requires the mental capacity and space to be flourishing. When your brain is anxious, it actually diminishes and it sort of closes you off. Like you'll put up these walls to keep the brain essentially from getting damaged, especially stress overload or chronic stress, which I mentioned in my last episode, which is a real thing. And then like I had mentioned in my last episode as well, you sometimes don't retain information in the moment. And it's almost like a blackout. And it's a little bit scary. So if, say, you're writing and this is starting to affect you because you're in chronic stress and you've forgotten whole chunks of what you were going to say, then you're going to have to go back and fill that in. And it isn't quite the same as when you're initially writing the piece. So here's how to make changes in that respect. Again, set up some habits before you actually dive into the writing so that you're in the right headspace and the stress is not affecting you that much. For example, you could do a thing called box breaths. Inhale on the count of 4, you hold for the count of 4, you exhale on the count of 4, and then you repeat. So it's a way of mood stabilizing. Divers use it, firefighters use it. You may have seen it in Chris Hemsworth's Limitless series, but it's a good way to restructure your nervous system and bring your stress levels down. The other thing that would be very important in this aspect is to separate whatever kind of problem solving that you need to do for your day to day, whether that be work, kids, your grocery list. If you're sitting down to write, push that aside. And your creative time should be your creative time because it's supposed to be fun. You know, when you're writing, it's supposed to be a nice creative outlet for you, and it's not supposed to be all encompassed with stress. Now, if you're stressing out because of this writing, that's another thing altogether. You should do a deep dive and figure out why this is stressing you out. Is it not the right story for you? Is there a deadline? That's something else that you would need to touch on and decipher exactly why sitting down to write would be stressing you out. So guys, let's talk about movement and how the lack thereof is an unhealthy habit that is sabotaging your creativity. If you're sitting like a slug all day, what does that do to your energy? And what do we say happens when your energy is low? You're not creatively productive. So when you're taking those micro breaks that I told you about before, when you step away from the computer and then you put fresh eyes on it, within those breaks, go for a walk, do a little bit of body weight exercise, or, jump on a piece of cardio equipment for 10 to 15 minutes. It'll help you to feel refreshed in your energy and in your mind, and you'll come back refreshed to whatever it is you were working on. You could even just get up and do stretching because, when we don't move for a number of hours throughout the day, it starts to tighten up the muscles of the body. And then guess what happens? You get stressed out. See how all this correlates and why, if you're not working on these unhealthy habits, how they can come together to impact your creativity. So movement is very easy to incorporate into your day to day. You just have to be willing to set a timer or set it into your mind that you need to take these breaks, get up, stretch, move around, and make it a habit. Another unhealthy habit that's probably affecting your work is overstimulation. What do I mean by that? Well, we've got everything coming at us a mile a minute. We sit there and we doom scroll on our phones, or we get distracted by the news or whatever. Like I said, there's a million different things coming at you from a million different directions. And we really have gotten to a point where we don't shut our minds off enough, just to sit in silence or sit in nature and just really think. And now with the introduction of things like Chat GPT or what have you, now we're thinking even less because we're actually outsourcing our thinking to a machine. So what does that do to the mind when it's like not working and also overstimulated at the same time? Think about it for a second. Is that going to be conducive to the type of creative work that you want to put out? I'll give you the answer. It's no. So what you want to do first and foremost, and a lot of people make this mistake, it's almost as if they're hooked to their phones. First thing they do when they wake up in the morning, roll over, and they grab their phone and they check their email or their texts. Is that you? Do you do that? Do you roll over? Do you check your emails or social media, which is even worse? Why? If that's you, ask yourself, why do you do that? Can you not be without your phone for 2 seconds? I mean, I always said if the grid goes down, that's your apocalypse because everyone's chained to their phones for everything these days. So if you're not going to have your phone, then, it'll be chaos. But to break that habit, maybe don't have your phone in the same room. Now, I have my alarm on my phone. A lot of you might do the same thing. That doesn't mean that when the alarm goes off, you need to grab that phone and start scrolling. Just turn the alarm off. Hopefully you're not hitting snooze 15 times. Turn the alarm off. Get up. Get some movement going. Like we said before, how important movement is. And then if you can, step outside and get sunlight on your face first thing, instead of going into, all the stuff coming at you. Because you would be surprised if you just tried this for a week to try not to jump on your phone and instead get some fresh air or just be, at one with your brain, you'd be surprised how you feel differently at the end of that week. These are just a few of the unhealthy habits that could be sabotaging your creativity. Really try to reflect on your own day-to-day and find out some of the ways in which you might be neglecting your creativity because your focus and your energy is somewhere else, or you're not giving yourself basic needs like sunlight or water, basic nutrition, and then start to establish changes in your routines. And they don't have to be huge, but start incorporating some of the things I mentioned here to make those changes to get yourself more energized, healthier, more productive, and see how your creativity levels and your productivity raises and how you'll start doing your best work, because that's what it's all about. It's mind-body wellness. It's whole body health. It's all coming together, mind in synergy with body, so that you can be your most creatively productive. So just ask yourself, when you're starting a new project, you're in the middle of one, ask yourself, before you even get back into it, what do I need to do for my creativity today to get it to its utmost? And then go from there. Because if you start overwhelming yourself with lists, that's also going to take away from being creative. We want an open mind, an open heart, and a lot of energy to be able to do our best work. Take care of your body and your creativity will flow. My challenge to you is for you to pick at least one thing from this episode, one tip, and start to incorporate it into your day-to-day. Particularly, maybe they're not grabbing your phone in the morning and instead getting outside or getting some stretching early in the morning, and see how that helps to really start to build up your energy, your mindset, and of course, your creativity. Make sure you like, subscribe, share. I'd love to get this information into as many hands as possible. But thank you for listening. But for now, show's over, Cynergy.